Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. In a letter released after a Freedom of Information request, it appears that Humza Yousaf has 5 key dates that he must meet for the finances. Previously, we only thought there was a couple of important ones, but it turns out that there's much more. So we're going to take a look at this article, but it is very telling that they have, in a very short period of time, so many deadlines that if they fail to meet them, it will cost them in terms of punishments or loss of grants. He must be a very nervous man, and no wonder, of course, there was such a rush to find some auditors in order to do these works, get these finances sorted. And that is why in the end, of course, they even had to go to England and find that Manchester firm, which themselves turns out to be not particularly a good firm. But hey, needs must when the devil rides. And when you are when you're the SNP and you are running out of time, you will accept anyone's help to try and get you over the line as far as these dates are concerned, which is what they've done. So we'll take a look at these articles, see what these dates are, and see what's the chances of them meeting them. And I think possibly not good in some of these cases, but we'll take that look now. Here goes. Right, well, we know through I've reported on it previously anyway, but it's also well known that there were 2 very, very important key dates. One was the 31st of May and one was the 7th of July, which we'll look at these in the piece. But these 2 dates were like the 2 big ones. These are the absolutely massive dates in terms of failure to meet them could result in a massive loss of income. And indeed worse, on top of that, in one case, a fine. And so not only are you not getting the money in, you're actually having to pay money out. And it can be quite a substantial fine at that. Almost half a camper van kind of fine, So we'll have a look at these dates now. But it is it's something that, it shouldn't have required a Freedom of Information request. And this is the trouble with, I can say with Humza Yousaf, but it's not even a Humza Yousaf issue. It's the whole SNP. It's their very mindset of secrecy that they're not releasing information that they really should. But anyway, it goes. Humza Yousaf warned SNP faces 5 critical deadlines over chaotic party finances. The Electoral Commission wrote to the SNP leader last month after the party's treasurer quit. And then they hid that, and it was eventually only a Freedom of Information request, as I say, that got this letter out. So an electoral watchdog has warned Humza Yousaf of 5 urgent deadlines the SNP has to meet to avoid a crippling cash crisis. The bombshell warning was contained in a letter sent direct to the First Minister by the Electoral Commission, which regulates the UK's party financial affairs. Yousaf was told reports must be issued on donations, loans and annual accounts amid fresh fears his party is low on cash. And of course his party is low on cash. A lot of the the corporate sponsors are distancing themselves. They don't want to align themselves with any kind of potential criminality. We're not saying even that there is criminality. There's certainly ineptitude, that's without doubt, but it would be wrong to say there's definitely criminality. It just looks like it and smells like it, but yet to be proved. But these firms still look at this, smell it and go, we'll hold off. And so the big money that they've had traditionally for years has kind of dwindled. That and the fact that there's now seemed to be a reduction in those people leaving money in wills. It seems to be all the ones that would have previously done so aren't dying at the rate at which the SNP need, put it that way. Anyway, the letter sent to Yousaf by the Electoral Commission's Director of Regulation, Louise Edwards, demanded a meeting to discuss these matters and said there is some urgency. The document went on to say the watchdog is aware of challenges facing the SNP at the moment, and Edwards added, our concern is that the party has the structures and personnel in place to comply with party finance laws. Now that line, their concern is that the party has the structures and personnel in place. What that means, if you read kind of between the lines, is they're actually more concerned that the party does not have the structures and personnel in place to comply with the party finance laws, which of course they didn't. They were in a complete state of flux and change. And of course, It would be it would be a very difficult time for Humza Yousaf. He's literally just come into the role. He's presented with this, and I'm going to say that he obviously doesn't know the state of the finances, simply because nobody knows the state of the finances because it was such a close secret. For all his boasting that he was in, what's the word I'm looking for? He was part of that inner clique at the top, which undoubtedly he was. But you have to wonder, was he part of the inner clique at the top regarding the finances? Because there was other very, very senior people who did not know about the finances because it was such a closely guarded thing. So we will give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's simply on the knowledge of the finances. Everything else he's fully aware of. Anyway, the strongly worded letter, dated the 20th of April, has been seen by the Daily Record after a Freedom of Information request. And the Record understands that failure to meet the deadlines could result in fines of up to £40,000. Last night, Labour MSP Jackie Bailey said the clock was ticking for the SNP to get their house in order. Well, it'll be a long time before the SNP's house is in any kind of order. But she's right about the clock ticking, because every tick of that clock gets you nearer to those dates. And some of them are very serious dates. She said, as well as meeting these deadlines, the SNP needs to start answering questions about this farce. The SNP must come clean about what went so badly wrong here and why everyone was kept in the dark as the crisis spiralled out of control. And that's because you're putting people into positions who are very, very stupid people. They're not educated. They're not knowledgeable in the area of which you're giving them responsibility. Why would you not put an accountant in charge of your finances? Why would you not put someone with, real world experience? Well, I can tell you why. It's because nobody in the SNP, in the senior hierarchy, has got real world experience. None of them have done a real job. They've all gone straight out of uni, straight into politics. Got me PPE, and then straight into politics. And that's politics, philosophy, and economics. That's the PPE is the standard degree for people who intend to never do a day's work. And so they go in, they've got no world experience, they don't know anything about business, they don't know anything about making a profit, they don't understand anything about lead times and risk management, things like that. They just go into a talking shop and try and make themselves sound worldly wise. But they're worldly stupid, that's what they are. Anyway, the SNP is in turmoil. This is going to be regurgitation. About 600,000 arrests released. We've done that story 1,000 times. Party auditors also resigned last year amid the police investigation, and that is one of the big problems they have, because they went, rather than going out straight away and say, oh, well, the auditors resigned, let's go and get some new auditors. What happened was the auditors resigned and they kept it a secret, and they couldn't tell anyone that the auditors had resigned. Because who knows why? Secrets, isn't it? Embarrassment? Who knows? But they struggled. They struggled. They could not get firm accounts. They eventually, the end of April, they managed to get this firm of, I'm not going to say they're crooked. I'm going to say they're not very good. They were late filing their own returns. So that tells you how they are. And then they were embroiled in a sort of a tax avoidance row, allegedly. So, they're not perhaps the best accountants, but they've found a set of accountants, firm of accountants, that will do the audit for them. But they're running out of time. Anyway, on April the 20th, weeks after Yousaf took over from Nicola Sturgeon, the Electoral Commission sounded the alarm over the SNP's finances after the resignation of its treasurer and auditors. They flagged up 5 dates by which the party had to provide paperwork on financial matters. The first deadline, April 30th, was for a loans and donations report, which had to be signed by the Treasurer or Yousaf as SNP leader. By May the 11th, they had to provide an independent audit for the 75% of a £145,000 policy grant that they had received. And that's money that's given to them from the public purse to help them push their policies. So it pays for staff as it pays for research, things like that. It's another one of those, I disagree that they should get this. Policy grants, any kind of public money should not be given to parties. If they want to form a party, they've got to pay for it themselves and charge their members accordingly. The public You know, the public who vote against them should not be taxed to pay for them. You know, I think it's wrong. But that's for a different video. The remaining 25% was linked to handing over this information. According to the Commission, the application date for the SNP receiving another grant is at the end of this month. This is the important one for them. This is the 31st of May, and they've got to hit that one, or they are buggered. In the letter to Yousaf, they write, without an application, the Commission may be unable to pay any grant for the coming year. And Yousaf also reminded Yousaf was also reminded that the SNP had to file its national and its Westminster accounts by July the 7th, and failure to do so could result in a fine of another £20,000. And the final deadline is July the 30th, which is another report on donations and loans. Stuart MacDonald was appointed Treasurer 2 days after the letter to Yousaf, and new auditors were announced in early May. The April 30th and May 11th deadlines have been met, but you do have 3 others which are ticking on the way up, and you guarantee they're not going to make all 3. They might make the very later ones, but you know, this is going to run and run, because if they miss and they have to fork out £40,000 and lose their grant, that party is sunk. It is done. And he knows it, and that's why it was squeaky bum time at SNP headquarters. But it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch, could it? And this is what happens when you're completely secret about everything. Talk to people, let them know. Say, you know, let's get this in. Does anyone know auditors? Does anyone know a firm of accountants? Apparently, they rung every single firm of accountants in Scotland, and not one of them said yes. And that shows how bad their accounts must be. Anyway, I shall round off and come up. The ticking of the clock spells his doom, I feel. Humza Yousaf, if he fails to do this, and if they lose that 40,000 and don't get their grant, the party will be in a very, very massive black hole financially. I think it could spell doom for Humza Yousaf. He's taken over this party. He's promised big things. He sat, you know, on the run up to that election for leadership. He's promised this. He's promised that. He's talked a good game. But now that he's in charge, of course, everything has gone completely wrong. There's not one thing he can really point out and say that was good. He has, and I have been fair, and I've said them at the time. There have been occasions where he has actually said something or done something that's been right, but it hasn't been anything big. It's just been a small decision, and you don't know whether it was a decision made purposefully or was it just luck. You know, it really is. That's how bad he is. But on all the big things, he's got it wrong every time, and so it's no surprise to find him, you know, leading a party in absolute financial disarray. He is doomed. I think I cannot see with the problems with the finances and with the problems of the polls, with a couple of elections likely to come up very soon. You've got the North Lanarkshire councils, and then you have the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election coming up, and I think that both of them will go very Labour, and I think that'll pile pressure on him. And with everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns. I know he's gone on about this, that, and the other, but have you seen? And this is the thing. Have you seen how much he's aged in the last sort of 9 weeks? At the start of that campaign, he was healthy looking. He had full healthy black hair. You know, you got to say he's a fairly good looking chap. He's not ugly at all. But I tell you what, I've noticed recently, as time's gone on, the skin is getting worse. The condition of the skin's getting worse. He's stooping more. He's starting to get grey hairs. The stress of that job, I think it's killing him. I honestly do. He is in a pretty bad way, and he's going to do himself in. I honestly think for his own health, he should resign. He should go back to the backbenchers, or at least being back into some kind of ministerial position, because I don't think that being leader is doing his health any favours whatsoever. Anyway, that's just my opinion of him. I mean, that's not a personal thing. This isn't political. This is just, you know, man-to-man kind of thing. He's not looking well on it. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like. Please share the video. But definitely leave a like. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, be very careful how you cast your vote if you live in East Lanarkshire. No, North Lanarkshire. And goodbye.